Hello guys, this is me Simo Orahara, and in this video I would like to talk about one of my favorite characters in Bleach and his path in the last arc. And here I'm talking about Kuchiki Byakuya. So first and foremost, Byakuya is among the characters that fired up the first arc. I would even say that when someone asks you, when does Bleach get more exciting and powerful? Most of you, including me, I would just say, just carry on watching. Starting episode 16, events will fire up, and no doubt you know what those events are. Byakuya and Renji came to take back Rukia, and what Byakuya did in Ichigo. And so these events took the story to another level, and those episodes marked the first official appearance of a captain, and Byakuya was the best introduction to a captain's character. The way he came from Soul Society with his noble appearance and coldness of speech, and how he overthrew Ichigo are all things to make you want to see the rest of the Soul Society characters. In fact, Byakuya was almost the main engine of the Soul Society events, alongside with the plot twist of Aizen. The idea that Rukia was Byakuya's sister and was sentenced to death, and the fact that Ichigo was heading to rescue her while Byakuya insists on her execution, was the core of the story at that point, giving the arc a beautiful dramatic side, where its hero was Byakuya. That conflict between his values as a noble person belonging to one of the great noble families and a captain of the 6th division are things that made him cling to the Soul Society rules, especially after he violated them before and sworn to never repeat the same mistake again. On the other hand, his feelings for Rukia and her sister Hisana, his wife, are all ingredients that give us this amazing character, and not forgetting the combat side. For your information, Byakuya's fight against Ichigo was first in rank for best manga fights in Bleach by Japanese fans, and that fight was great in every aspect because it met all the things that I have mentioned previously, and that fight ended revealing the reasons behind Byakuya's decision. And there is no doubt that many of you admired Byakuya after knowing his past and his relationship with Hisana, and to be honest with you, from that moment, from that point, Byakuya became one of my favorite characters in Bleach. And by the way, Byakuya's design of the first arc is my favorite because it includes all Byakuya's qualities that I love. Anyway, in the Arankara arc, things were still good with Byakuya. His fight against Zomari was one of my favorite fights, especially since, in my opinion, Byakuya's fights are always diverse, and he's one of the characters considered a master in Kido. With his distinctive mastery of Bankai, he's one of the few shinigami in the story who fight with Zanpakuto in Kido, and I love those kind of shinigamis like Aizen Sasuke, Orahara, and also Byakuya. And we don't have to forget, adding to that, he learned from Yurichi several Shihon techniques, although he doesn't prefer to use them. And here I would like to talk about something that some bring up very often, which is that Byakuya uses his Bankai a lot, and he uses his Bankai in almost every fight. Some consider this to be a weakness, just because some of the other powerful characters only use their Bankai rarely. And I think this comparison is somewhat incorrect, because there must be a distinction between the types of Bankai that each Shinigami possesses. For example, some Bankai have conditions and their owner cannot release them every time. Even if they want to, they might not able to because the Bankai might hurt them or their allies. I mean, some Shinigami don't simply prefer to fight with only their Shikai, but they just can't release the Bankai every time, like Kyoraku's Bankai. Kyoraku has the kind of Bankai that cannot be used in every battle because it consumes massive Reiatsu and taking up a large space, which may harm his allies, like what happened between him and Stark and Okitake didn't want Kyoraku to release his Bankai because of those conditions. And there is also the Bankai of Hiraku. It is almost useless because you can only release it if there is literally no ally in the battlefield. As for Byakuya, it's the opposite. What some consider a weakness is actually a strength. I don't want to elaborate on the strength of the Senbon Sakura because I'm planning to make a video about the Zanpakuto, but in short, the Senbon Sakura is one of the most effective Zanpakuto, that it provides Byakuya a safe zone to protect him from his power, unlike some Zanpakuto that can lead to the destruction of its owner, such as Hisagi's Bankai, not to mention his high control over the Senbonzakura, and his development of several techniques and stages at the Bankai level. These are all things we saw in each fight of Byakuya, whether it was against Ichigo or Zumari. On the other hand, as I said earlier, everything was good with Byakuya until the Fullbring arc, and here we reach Byakuya's path in the last arc, and exactly what happened after his battle against Nodt. And everyone was believing that he was dead, and I still remember some fans attacked Kobo on his Twitter thinking that Byakuya was dead. And here guys, I will give my own opinion on that event. First, I have no problem killing one of my favorite characters if their death will push the story forward and give some space for the development of other characters. For example, if Ishin was killed in the middle of the story, I would accept it. Same goes for Byakuya. But in addition to the character's death having some positive effect on the progression of the story, there is also how it ended. If Kobo wanted to end Byakuya's character in the last arc, fine, I'm in. Give it a proper end, a full fight, in which he uses his full powers and his death is beneficial. For example, Byakuya's death would give Rukia, Renji and even Ichigo a strong impulse to train their asses to avenge his death, so we can see how Renji and Rukia characters will evolve. But in reality, none of this happened, because Byakuya's fights against Nodt, in my opinion, it wasn't going well from the beginning. Anyone who follows Byakuya knows that he's not a fool, he's not stupid, he always thinks with his mind while fighting. So putting Byakuya with those who suddenly released their Bankai and got it stolen, and I mean here Soifon, Sajin and Toshiro, was a bad move. Because it is true that Byakuya likes to fight directly with his Bankai, but as a character, he's not stupid to release the Bankai in a situation that can lead to lose of his Bankai. Because even when he decided to participate in the battle with Renji, Byakuya showed a high level of planning. He injured Nodt and removed Masculine from the battlefield using only his Shikai with a smart movements. And the same person will be as stupid as to release his Bankai, assuming it could be sealed. And in case it was sealed, Renji will use his Bankai. Is this the logic of a smart character such as Byakuya? Because logic says Renji should be the one releasing his Bankai. At least sacrificing a weak Bankai is less harmful than losing the Senbonzakura. And even when the Bankai was stolen from him, there were alternative ways of fighting, such as using Kido. How many times did Byakuya use Kido in his fights? Almost in every fight. And he used a Bakudo to stop one of Zomari's techniques. Is Kido may not be strong weapon against the Quincy? I don't think so. In the manga, some characters use the Kido, like Nanao and the barrier that she put in front of Hasvald, and even in the novel, the beginning of Revive of Tomorrow that contained the fight between Kira and Chaz. Kira used the Kido against Chaz, and it was actually one of the reasons why he defeated him. And by the way, my next video will be about that fight that happened in that novel. Returning to the subject, if I was Kobo, I must show the reader that Byakuya tried to use all possible methods and did not work. For example, Byakuya saying, I will try to use a Bakudo to stop those needles. At least that's how I would understand that Byakuya burned all his papers and it didn't work. But I think it was just the plot of Kobo that Byakuya must be defeated, so I must ignore all the other possibilities of fighting. And the other problem is that even after it turns out that Byakuya is alive, and after his return from the Soul Palace and got a big power up, he didn't get any real fight. So what's the point in keeping him alive and giving him great powers that he won't even use in a battle? Kobo only showed us that Byakuya now has a Shikai at the same level as was his Bankai before he went to the Royal Palace, and that he defeated Trish and Aicha. We didn't even see how he defeated them. It was off screen, and even when he clashed with Pepe, the fight wasn't completed like many of the last arc fights. They all start and get stopped in the middle with other character interfering. The only thing that stood out was his use of a new techniques of the Senbonzakura on Gerard, and that was his last fighting scene in the manga. As I told you guys, I personally have no problem with Byakuya dying. I actually would prefer for him to die in the first invasion, but with a full fight and a proper ending. So what do you think guys about Byakuya in his path in the last arc? And see you in my next video that will be about Kira and Chaz.